Welcome back to Kentucky Petrolhead and the Nissan Altima. Is it the ultimate affordable sedan? Is it fun to drive? Who knows? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to Kentucky Petrolhead, and today I'm driving a Nissan Altima SR. Now, there aren't very many actual sedans left on the road, particularly full-size sedans. So they're kind of a rare breed these days. Is it worth buying? Well, I mean, if you're looking for something affordable, if you're looking for something fun to drive, and that's cheap on gas, you can't really go wrong with a sedan, because they're going to do all of those things automatically better than a crossover. There's less wind resistance, there's less weight, they're lower to the ground, so just automatically you're going to have a better driving vehicle in general. Now, if I were to compare this to a Porsche Cayenne GTS, obviously that would probably do better, but it also weighs a lot more, and you're going to feel that. Now, this isn't designed to be a sports sedan. It's front-wheel drive. It has a little four-cylinder in it. It has a CVT transmission, but you can still have a lot more fun in this than you can in most crossover SUVs. So check it out as we go review this Nissan Altima SR. Design-wise, the Nissan looks really nice. It has a more aggressive look than some of the other sedans on the market. Nissan does consider this a sports sedan. It's not as near sporty as the Maxima, which used to be the big brother, which they no longer make. But it does have a nice and aggressive sporty look with a nice set of wheels, and it is a lot of fun. Seating position's nice. I love these zero gravity seats. I know I've said it like 15 times. They are power adjustable. You can go forward, backward, tilt the back, and then you can kind of curve the bottom up, which I like because it helps support your legs. And then the steering wheel, and it telescopes, which I love. I like to drive race car style with the steering wheel right here instead of riding like this. Less effort, more comfortable. Use your fingers to drive, but everything's kind of within good reach range. You know, the floppy paddles are very cheap plastic, but again, it's just an Altima. Not bad for an entry-level sedan, which are getting hard to find because you have manufacturers like Ford and Chevy who are no longer making sedans. They only make SUVs with the exception of the sports cars, but they don't make regular cars anymore. So you're kind of running out of options. And, you know, the sales on those have gone down quite a bit on regular cars, which is why they quit selling them. But they're still cheaper than going out and buying an SUV. So if you're in a budget, you're going to get better fuel mileage, better handling. It's going to stop faster, and you spend less getting into one. So I still think there's something to consider. Honestly, I would have a car over one of these crossover SUVs any day. A crossover SUV is essentially a car on stilts, so you lose the handling. You sit up higher, which is nice, but most of them aren't any good off-road. I mean, if you want to drive through the lawn in the wet, maybe, or for the snow, but you know, they're not that great off-road. So why? To me, it's like, if I want to be on the road, I want the best thing that drives on the road. If I want to go off the road, I want a truck frame SUV or truck with a low range gearbox to actually be able to do something. Yes, and I know things like the Range Rover, they all come with that, but who's going to go off-roading in a $150,000 luxury vehicle unless you're filthy rich, right? And they still not that great compared to something with solid axles like a Jeep or just a basic truck or a Tacoma, because they're going to get more flex and you can fit more tire on them and more suspension travel for a lot less money. Now, granted, it'd be fun to have a Range Rover. I'd love to have one, but not to off-road. So if you're buying a car to drive on the road,
maybe look at an Altima or the Maxima, which I prefer over this. And I know there's not a whole lot of options left. I think Kia and Toyota still sell some sedans, and there are some electric cars out there as well that you can get, like the Tesla Model 3, but they're a dying breed, kind of like the manual transmission, although there's still more cars on the road than there are cars with manual transmissions. All right, so what's the room like in the back of an Altima? Well, I mean, this is considered a full size. I've got this seat pretty far back at the moment, and the seat's comfortable. You can't really get your feet up under the seat like you might be able to in an SUV per se, but my knees are not hitting these. I guess these are zero gravity seats in the back too, because they're pretty darn comfy. You got a fold up armrest, and this is like partial leather with a fabric in the center that kind of has a diamond pattern on it that's real nice. And then you do have a USB-C and a USB power port in the back, cup holder in the armrest. Now, I just noticed, so like I said, this vehicle does have about 30,000 miles on it, and the leather has been pulled out here on the door frame, so not quite sure how that would happen, but I'll show you that in a close-up in a second. I'm not sure how you would do that. Looks like it just got pulled out from inside of the plastic there, but otherwise it's pretty comfy back here. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, and I got about that much room between the top of my head and the roof, but I can move my head around with some extra space without hitting. Now, if you were to put someone in the middle, of course it's going to get tight, but for 4 people in here, be very comfortable, or 4 adults and a kid, but with an adult in the middle, it'd be pretty tight. Plenty of room in the trunk. Obviously, you can't fit tall items like you can in a SUV, but I mean, there's plenty of room for me to get in, and maybe some more people, because I'm all the way to the back. There's room for someone else in here, for all you mafia people out there. Whoa, I'm not flexible enough to do that anymore. You do have buttons that you can pull right here to let the seats down up front, and then Nissan sends you an emergency road kit. Interesting. Let's see what's in it. We got jumper cables, reflectors, a flashlight, a couple screwdrivers, an extra light bulb for the flashlight, and a pair of pliers. I would say how kind of them, but I bet you got to pay for that.
The interior design on the Altima is nothing special. I mean, you do get some red stitched leather, and the button layout is easy enough, and the gauges look nice. The quality level isn't as much as like you would get from a German sedan or a Volkswagen or something, but I mean, this is an entry-level full size, so that's to be expected, but there's nothing inherently wrong with it. This one does come with Apple CarPlay and a decent sounding sound system, so it's not a bad entertainment system. So the Nissan Altima comes in 4 different trims. The S, which is the base model, the SV, which has a few things added, the SR, which is the sport model, which is what I'm driving in this video, and then the SL, which is kind of the higher end one. Now the SL or SR does have the sport tune suspension, which I think you can definitely feel when you're driving it. But you can see the prices on these are all a reasonable start price. Now, they used to have a turbo model that you could buy for the Altima, but you can't do that anymore. It's just the base engine, which is a 188 horsepower 4-cylinder. Now, on the fuel economy numbers down here, they're saying 39 on the highway for the 2 lower end models, and the 2 higher end models are getting 37. I actually was getting about 40 miles per gallon on a flat highway going 70. So I actually got a little bit better than this when I was driving on the highway. So you can sort of see some of the options that they have with the 4 different specs. If I was getting one, it'd be the SR because of the sport tune suspension, because it's definitely a lot of fun. And then for your infotainment options, pretty much kind of the basic sort of stuff. They don't have premium audio unless you get the SL, but the system that was in it was passable. It's nothing fancy, but it works. The SL is the one that comes with all the extra, like Alexa and door-to-door navigation, voice activation. But honestly, if you have a radio that has Apple CarPlay, you pretty much do all that with your phone, and I think it's much easier and faster and better layout than any of these other ones with built-in GPS that I've seen. So that's pretty much the place I go to immediately, is plug in my iPhone and use Apple CarPlay. So this Nissan Altima is actually pretty nice on the highway. It's quiet. You know, the nice thing about, I think, these cars versus an SUV is you've got a lot more aerodynamic shape. So even though this is like more of an entry-level vehicle, you know, it's not a luxury car, you get less wind noise because there's just less of a brick moving through the air. So it's pretty quiet wind noise wise, and it's comfortable. I love the Nissan zero gravity seats. They're like the most comfy seats that I think I've ever sat in a vehicle. And again, this is an entry-level car, so it's not like, you know, we're riding a Cadillac here or something. Their seats are so comfy on any one that has the zero gravity seats. These are leather or a fake leather, I'm not sure, but I don't have heated seats in this model. This is an SR, and it's, you know, it's a fun little car to drive. Anytime you're in a car versus any kind of SUV, even if it's a sport SUV, just having less weight, lower center of gravity, it's going to be more fun to drive. Pretty much hands down. The one thing that I don't like about Nissan passenger vehicles is the CVT transmission. Not only do they not last, any CVT transmission, they wear out. Most places won't even bother trying to replace them or rebuild them because they're so expensive. They don't want to mess with them, and so much of a headache. They're also not very fun to drive sportingly. All right, so this Altima has a CVT transmission that also has some gears in it. So it does come with some flappy paddles, but do they do anything? Maybe a little bit, but you still got to deal with the CVT transmission. So it doesn't feel like it's connected quite like a normal transmission, because you got the belts constantly adjusting. Kind of takes the fun out of it, if you ask me. When you put your foot down, there's quite a big delay from when you feel the car start to take off, even when you have downshifted into one of the lower gears. So pretty much all the Nissans I've driven, which is basically this and the Maxima, as far as the cars go, have been pretty fun. I much prefer the Maxima. I think it's a much nicer car, and the handling on it is really nice. But this is also good as well. Brakes are good. Toss it into a corner, no drama. Steering wheel feels good. Now floored, first gear. Yeah, you get a lot of whine from that CVT, and you know the shifts are pretty slow because when you shift the gear, the CVT is adjusting as well. Honestly, it kind of ruins the car for me. I like the car, pretty much everything about it, as an affordable sedan, except the CVT. I was driving a CVT with a 4-cylinder in it one time, and tried to do a burnout with the handbrake on, and there was definitely some burning rubber, but it wasn't the tires, it was the belts. So you're definitely not able to put down the kind of power that you can in a torque converter transmission or a dual clutch transmission. Now, I understand that Nissan doesn't have a huge budget, and that they are doing this because they have to meet fuel economy numbers for the government. But there's so many like 8, 9, 10 speed transmissions out there now that they could likely source from someone like ZF, without having to necessarily develop one entirely from scratch for themselves, that I think they're kind of out of excuses at this point. I mean, they are starting to. They've got a normal transmission in the new Pathfinder with its V6, you know, and they need to adapt that to the other cars in the lineup. And I think that's what's really hurt Nissan, is the transmission issues. Yes, you do get
phenomenal fuel mileage out of a CVT because it can just adjust gearing to no end. And I was on the highway, and you could easily get 40 miles to the gallon out of this car. And this is a full-size car, you know, with a CVT, and it's not an issue. But you better save all that money because you're going to need it when the transmission quits working. I had a friend that bought a Versa with a CVT in it, and 10,000 miles in, the whole transmission had to be replaced because they can't handle it. Now, if you buy a Nissan that has a regular transmission, a torque converter, normal transmission, you're likely to have a car that will last a very long time. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I own a Nissan Frontier, or I did until it got totaled last week, and it had 188,000 miles on it when it was totaled, and it was running fine. And their trucks, anything that runs on that setup, that or the Titan, which has the V8, are known to be very reliable. It's just the passenger cars, and predominantly because of the CVT transmission.
Overall, I think the Altima is a great little car. I actually really enjoy the Nissans. I think they're a lot of fun to drive. I enjoy their seats and their interior design as a basic level car. And the fuel efficiency on it is amazing. It's just the CVT transmission that makes me nervous. But you go check one out for yourself and do some research. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this content and found it helpful, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and we will see you next time. Kentucky Petrolhead, over and out.